I would argue that the reason new atheism is around is purely artificial light. I really mean that. If we would just turn off all the electricity just once a month for people to see the heavens again, they would come back to believing in something bigger than themselves. Because I personally, many times, many nights, the Sahara Desert is the darkest place in the world in terms of artificial light. There's almost no artificial light where I was. Many nights in the Western Sahara, I literally was reduced to, really crying, just because it was just so overwhelming to see the beauty of the heavens. And people have been deprived of this for so long. I mean, we see Orion, which is stunning. I love Orion. But just to see the multitude of stars, the heavens declare your glory. Plato said that God put the heavens there for us to see the order and want to bring the order of the heavens down to the earth. And just astronomy is so important. And modern astronomy has killed astronomy. It has killed it. So many people take courses in astronomy at college. They're the worst courses that you can take. They will kill any love that inspired you to take that course in the first place. And so we do a lot of natural-based astronomy, of literally going out, observing the moon. We have an incredible teacher, Dr. Yusuf, who's been watching the moon every month for, 25 years or something. He's really probably one of the world's leading experts on moon sighting. And if you've ever seen a new moon born, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. I've only seen it once, literally come like I saw it birthed. And it was just such a stunning experience to see that. But everybody, we go out moon sighting, and everybody who's done it knows the joy that you get when you first spot the moon. It's such a joyous experience. And the word for seeing the moon is the same word for the cry of the child in Arabic, istihla, when it first comes into the world. It's a shout. For the child, what am I doing here? But for us, it's like, what is God doing with us? This is so amazing. So astronomy is really important. They learn to do sundials. They learn to identify stars. We do real phenomenological astronomy, just understanding. Because we are in a geocentric world, whether we like it or not. The heliocentric and the geocentric are both true. One is true from experience, and the other is true from just very complicated mathematical conceptualizations. But geocentrism, nobody talks about what a beautiful earth turn that is. Because we just don't. I always like Paul McCartney said, the fool on the hill sees the sun going down and the eyes in his head see the earth spinning round. That's a stunning piece of poetry. Inspired clearly, because that's the modern person. We're so conflicted existentially. And so astronomy is really important. Music. Traditionally, music, harmony, it was armonia, was the liberal art. It was actually far more theoretical than what we would consider music today. But music, the maqamat were very important in the Islamic civilization, and we have great masters still alive in that tradition, which the maqamat are closer to what we would call the modes than they are to the modern music. But they do inshad and things like that. So, but we haven't done any formal training in that. I really want to get more quadrivium based. It's tough. A lot of students just shy away from it. One of the things that most impresses me about St. John's College is that they really do the quadrivium, and they love it. The students love it. If you've never done in book 1, I think it's the 47th proposition. If you've never done it in Euclid, just do it one time. It's actually quite stunning experience to prove the Pythagorean theorem. In high schools, they teach you how to use it. It's a utilitarian function of it. But Euclid was much more in showing you why these things are true, not what you can do with them. I'll tell you about Loeb's classics. Has anybody ever heard of the Kuhn-Loeb family? Okay, this is one of the biggest banking families of New York. They were billionaires in today's money. So over 100 years ago, one of their sons went to Harvard and studied Latin and Greek and had a really hard time. And so he convinced his dad, one of the richest men in America, to fund the translation of all these Greek and Latin classics. So I'm looking for that character to help us. So if you know this, somebody like that, right? One of the students, we have a billionaire student that comes and can convince their dad to fund. But this does take a lot of work and to free people up to do these translations. And then the scholastic tradition, I would love to see some of the translations of Ghazali and these that are in Latin, really bringing those back into it. I think they'll probably be pretty good translations because they were such rigorous scholars. So that would be fascinating. But Latin and Greek will come back. They will have their revival, and already we see the seeds of it. Arabic is, to me, it is such a stunning ocean. And if you I wanted to study other languages, but there's always something more to learn in Arabic. So it's one of those languages that where you fall into it, it's just really difficult to get out. And that's the reason why the Arabs call a dictionary is called al-qamus, which means ocean, right? So Arabic is literally, it's just vast, and it's extraordinary. And there's great gifts in it, and we believe the wisdom of Mark Twain once said that the ancients stole all their best ideas from us. One of the best reasons for studying the classics is that you realize, one, we're all still human. The problems of yesterday were around. If you want to read a wonderful study on women fed up with men governing everything, just read Aristophanes, the Assembly Women. I mean, it's like they were dealing with the same problems. Or read Lysistrata, fed up with wars and sending young men to war. I mean, there's so much. The Masnawi is filled with incredible psychological insights into the nature. Rumi has a great story of a man who goes to have a lion tattooed on his back. And so the tattoo artist starts, and he's like, what's that? What's that? He said, it's the tail. It's the tail. He said, no, start with the head. And so he goes to the head. And then he said, wow, what's that? He said, it's the head. He said, no, do the body. and then same thing happens with the body. And finally, Rumi just says that, you have to suffer if you want to be a lion, if you want to be great, if you want to be virtuous, you have to suffer. But people want everything without the pain of getting it. So he uses that. There are many examples of that in both the traditions. I mean, if you read, Livy said that the study of history is medicine for a sick mind. Because when you study history, you'll feel a lot better about the time you're living in. I mean, we're actually living in global warming it's uncomfortable, but pestilence and plague, that was uncomfortable too. Like 25 million people died. I mean, we tend to forget like how good things are, and that's why these people are really worth reading. If you want to understand what happened in Syria, I guarantee you can find out by reading Al-Maqrizi. Al-Maqrizi wrote a book on the causes of the collapse of states. And everything that he identified, I saw the correspondence. Or read book 5 of Aristotle's Politics on revolutions. And you'll see why. Aristotle talks about the 99% and the 1%. He talks about this problem that Wilhelm Brandt, right, the German back in the 1970s, people are too young in here to remember this guy. He wrote a book called North and South, basically predicting what's happening in Europe right now. He said, if we don't do something about this incredible equality gap of wealth, we're going to have a disaster on the horizon. And you will have these people flooding in, desiring what we have because they're so deprived. So it's very important. These are ways of understanding our world, that having understanding, knowing a diagnosis is a great gift. Just to know what's going on with you. There's a relief that comes, even when the doctor gives you a terminal, there's a relief that comes with having a diagnosis, of knowing what's wrong. But you cannot work to make something better until you make a sound diagnosis of what's wrong. And so we believe at Zaytuna that what's wrong with the world is very simple. It's ignorance, and the cure is education. That it's a very simple equation. It doesn't mean that there aren't evil, educated people. Goebbels was real. He was the only PhD in the hierarchy of the Nazi government. He's a smart guy. He studied one of our great social psychologists, his book on propaganda. So he learned a lot from the Americans. But education's not necessarily going to protect you from being evil or crafty, but ignorance, there's a real problem. So thank you.